In this video, we'll be taking a look at 4 NHL games happening on December 10th, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 8 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released, so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 4 NHL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start: if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below, where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. New York Rangers versus Chicago Blackhawks. The New York Rangers head into the United Center on Wednesday night for an Original Six clash with the Chicago Blackhawks, and it feels like two teams moving in opposite directions. New York is coming off a pair of frustrating but respectable 3-2 overtime losses against the Colorado Avalanche and Vegas Golden Knights. Losing in extra time to those two is hardly a red flag, and it actually fits into a bigger pattern. The Rangers have been playing a cleaner, more confident game lately, rolling to a 5-1-2 stretch over their last 8, and they have been outstanding away from home with a road mark of 12-4-1. That kind of consistency on the highway is not an accident, especially for a group that leans on structure more than flash. Igor Shesterkin is expected to get the start again, and his work on the road has been exactly what bettors like to see. He has a 9-3-1 line away from Madison Square Garden, with a 2.29 goals against average and a .918 save percentage, plus his lone shutout of the season also came in someone else's barn. When your goalie travels this well, it takes a lot of the randomness out of backing the visitor, even if the building gets loud early. Chicago, on the other hand, feels a bit like a team still reading the manual while the game is already underway. The Blackhawks opened their 4-game road trip with some positive energy, stealing a 4-3 shootout win against Vegas and then grinding out a 2-1 victory in Los Angeles as roughly +170 underdogs. Those are the wins that tease you into believing the corner has been turned. Then the schedule pushed back. In the second leg of a back-to-back, LA flattened them 6-0, and Anaheim followed up by running them out of the building 7-1, with Arvid Soderblom facing 53 shots and watching 7 of them get behind him in what looked more like a practice shooting drill than a competitive NHL game. That is what you get with a very young roster that is still trying to figure out how to protect leads, handle momentum swings, and frankly, stay composed when things start going wrong. There are flashes of what this group might become, especially with the buzz surrounding their young star, but right now the growing pains are loud. Here is the thing that jumps off the page from a betting angle: the Rangers have quietly become one of the most straightforward teams to support this season. You back them on the road, and you stay cautious with them at home. 12 of their 15 wins have come away from home ice, which tells you how comfortable they are in hostile buildings. On top of that, they have taken 8 of the last 10 meetings against Chicago, and most of those victories have not exactly been nail-biters. 5 of those 8 wins were decided by at least 2 goals, which hints at a real gap in class when these rosters line up across from each other. Chicago can certainly punch up for a night, but when you zoom out, the pattern is pretty clear, and it favors the blue side if you are looking at who is more likely to handle the number over 60 minutes. As our first pick for this matchup, the New York Rangers money line is our full game side pick. The Rangers have built their season around one of the stingiest defensive setups in the league, allowing just 2.61 goals per game, which puts them among the top units in that category. They do not always overwhelm you with fireworks, but they squeeze space, they block shots, and they keep Shesterkin's workload challenging but manageable. It is the kind of defense that quietly drags totals downward over time. Chicago's attack, on paper, checks in at 2.97 goals per game, driven heavily by Connor Bedard and his 18 goals. He is electric, fun to watch, and already the guy everyone else looks for when they gain the zone. The problem is what happens after that first option. There is not a lot of scoring depth behind him, so when the top line is bottled up by a locked-in defensive pairing, the Hawks often spend long stretches chasing the puck instead of creating with it. Defensively, the Blackhawks are giving up 3.07 goals per game and just absorbed those 2 ugly blowout losses on the Western swing. Numbers like 6-0 and 7-1 can distort how people feel about a team's totals because they are so extreme that they stick in the mind. But even those disasters came with a familiar thread: long defensive zone shifts, high shot counts, and a sense that the team is hanging on rather than dictating anything. Against a methodical Rangers group that usually slows the pace more than it turns the game, game into a track meet. Shesterkin's overall goals against average sits at 2.46, which lines up with the broader story that New York games are often decided in tighter scoring windows. When you pair a high-end goalie like that with a disciplined defensive core, it becomes harder for even talented opponents to push games into the kind of wide-open chaos that routinely sends totals over 6.5. Chicago's young offense can certainly generate a highlight or two, but it tends to come in bursts, not sustained waves. The recent trend on the total is worth noting. The under has cashed in 4 of the past 5 Rangers games and is 9, 3, and 1 over their last 13, which lines up with what you see on the ice, a club that protects leads and leans into structure more than risk. Both teams, taken together, have averaged roughly 5.6 combined goals per game this season, which sits well below the posted 6.5 number. When you pull all of that together, with New York's defense tightening screws and Chicago's scoring depth still very much a work in progress, the overall scoring environment lines up more with a lower total than a shootout. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Detroit Red Wings versus Calgary Flames. Detroit's road trip rolls on Wednesday afternoon as the Red Wings head into Calgary for Game 4 of a 6-game swing, and they are treating this trip more like a confidence tour than a grind. They are sitting at 2-0 to 1 so far, 2-0 to 1, and that emphatic 4-0 shutout of Vancouver on Monday is the kind of result that tends to echo around a locker room. Detroit's attack has stayed hot, piling up 18 goals across its last 4 games and hitting at least 3 goals in 8 of the last 9, which tells you this is not a fluke heater but more of a sustained rhythm. You can almost picture their top 6 treating every rush like a power play. On the other side, Calgary walks in with a win streak and home ice, but also with that nagging sense that things still feel fragile. Dustin Wolf was rolling through December, looking composed, square to pucks, and mostly drama-free. Then he gave up 4 goals to Buffalo on Monday. He still got the win, which is nice for the box score, but it is the kind of outing that makes you slightly nervous when a streaking offensive team like Detroit comes to town. Here is the thing, the Flames' 7-goal outburst against the Sabres looks great on a ticker, but it may say more about Buffalo's defensive mess than a sudden Calgary renaissance. Across the full season, Calgary is averaging only 2.48 goals per game, with a power play that sits 29th in the league while oddly listed at a 29% conversion clip, which is a strange pairing on its face. That erratic profile makes them tough to fully trust against a team that is clearly in a groove. Recent history does not exactly calm the Calgary side of the argument either. Detroit has strung together 6 straight wins in this head-to-head matchup, and that kind of run tends to live rent-free in both benches' memory banks. Calgary comes in with one of the lowest point totals in the league, even though they have won 3 in a row and get the comfort of home, where they are 7-4-2 so far. Detroit counters with a 7-5-2 record away from home, plus a current stretch of 3-0-1 in its last 4 overall, scoring at least 4 goals in each of those 4 games. Calgary's offense is still stuck around that 2.48 goals per game mark, and they have been held to 2 or fewer goals in 3 of their last 5, which feels especially shaky against teams that can push the pace. Detroit has handled these lower-scoring opponents well throughout this road trip, using its deeper offense to create separation without needing to play perfect hockey. Let me explain why that matters for the side. When one team can reasonably expect to get to 3 or 4 goals and the other repeatedly struggles to reach 3, the margin for error tilts in a very particular direction, especially when the recent series history supports that same tilt. Zooming out a bit, Detroit's scoring level of 3.1 goals per game stacks up far better than Calgary's 2.48, and league tables have Detroit sitting 10th in total offense, while Calgary is described here as having the worst offense in the NHL with 77 total goals. That is a harsh label, but within this write-up, it reinforces the idea that Detroit has the more reliable attack. Calgary's numbers on the back end are only middling, with a 2.9 goals against average, slotted 17th, so they are not exactly locking games down to compensate. Neither team is described as having especially reassuring goaltending. Cam Talbot with an 884 save percentage and Jonathan Gibson with an 881 are both noted as sitting at or above a 3 goals against average, and Dustin Wolf's 897 mark does not scream wall and net either. Put that together with Detroit's 6-game winning streak in the matchup and relatively minor injury notes, like Calgary dealing with defenseman Jake Bean being day-to-day and Detroit missing depth forward Mason Appleton, and you get a side picture that leans toward the team with both form and matchup history on its side. As our first pick for this matchup, the Detroit Red Wings money line is our full game side pick. This matchup is being framed as one where offense is expected to shine more than structure, even though Calgary is also labeled as the league's lowest scoring team. It sounds contradictory at first, but that tension is part of what makes this game interesting. Here is the thing, Detroit is humming along at that 3.1 goals per game rate, and their recent stretch of 18 goals in 4 outings plus at least 3 goals in 8 of their last 9 games suggests they are not slowing down. They have found ways to generate offense on this trip against both weaker defensive teams and more competent ones, which usually signals that the system is working, not just individual hot streaks. Their current 4-game run of scoring at least 4 goals also sets a high baseline expectation for their production. Calgary, for its part, is a bit of a puzzle. They are painted as the NHL's worst offense with 77 goals and a season average of 2.48 goals per game, yet they just hung 7 on Buffalo and are described as having heavy offenses and shaky defenses in this matchup. That 7-goal game likely owes a lot to Buffalo's defensive problems, but it also shows that Calgary can spike when things loosen up. The power play is another odd point, ranked 29th while supposedly converting at 29%, which reads strangely but still feeds into this idea of unpredictability. When an offense is inconsistent, it can be quiet for long stretches, then explode without much warning. The goaltending picture also leans toward a higher scoring script. Cam Talbot's .884 save percentage and Jonathan Gibson's .881 mark, both with goals against averages at or above 3, suggest that when they are involved, pucks are finding twine more than coaches would like. Wolf's .897 save percentage is better but still not in the elite range, and he is coming off that 4-goal outing against the Sabres. That combination of merely average to shaky goaltending on both benches creates plenty of paths to a game where defense is chasing the play instead of controlling it. The recent trend numbers line up with that idea too. 7 of Detroit's 7 last 9 games have gone over the betting total, which tracks with their recent scoring surge and loose style. On Calgary's side, 5 of their last 6 games against Atlantic Division opponents have also landed over the number, suggesting that when they face teams that push pace and prioritize attack, the game often opens up. Put all of this together, from Detroit's current scoring clip to Calgary's combination of low season averages and occasional big outbursts, and the most reasonable expectation is for a game that leans toward a higher total rather than a tight, low-scoring grind. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Florida Panthers versus Utah Mammoth. Florida's recent form looks strong since they come in chasing a 3rd straight win and have stacked up 11 goals across their last 2 games. That kind of mini-heater always grabs attention, especially when an offense finally starts finishing chances it had been creating anyway. The catch is on the road, where Florida sits at 4-6-0. They have not exactly looked comfortable once they leave their own building. Utah, on the other hand, has quietly built a solid home profile at 7-4-1. They have dropped 2 straight coming into this one, which sounds ugly at first glance, but the deeper note is that they have allowed 2 goals or fewer in 3 of their last 4. That kind of defensive stubbornness usually tells you the structure is sound, even if results wobble a bit. Neither side has really turned into a track meet offense so far this season, so small edges matter, and Utah's slightly cleaner work in their own zone stands out, especially with home ice and the last change. When you stack the recent form, the road issues for Florida, and Utah's defensive edge at home, the side that looks more trustworthy is the Mammoth in their own barn. As our first pick for this matchup, the Utah Mammoth money line is our full game side pick. Scoring-wise, the picture tilts a bit differently. Florida sitting at 3.11 goals per game and Utah at 3 goals per game means both offenses can put the puck in the net at a pretty healthy rate when they are in rhythm. Their defensive numbers, with Florida at 3.18 goals against per game and Utah at 2.90 goals against per game, land in that middle ground where you do not exactly expect a lockdown battle. It is more like a game where a few mistakes or a sloppy line change can flip things from tight to wide open. Special teams have not been carrying either club. Florida's power play is at 19%, while Utah's sits at 15.1%, and the penalty kills are at 80.4% and 82.4% respectively, which is serviceable but not suffocating. That kind of profile often leads to those annoying, almost killed it, but not quite goals that push totals higher. Statistically, the two teams together average more than 6 goals per game, and the recent trend has followed that story. Florida has seen 6 of its last 10 games get to at least 6 goals, and Utah has hit that same Game 6 of 10 mark. Last season, these teams played a tight 2-1 overtime game with Florida squeaking it out 2-1, but this year the way both offenses and defenses are tracking, especially with the current scoring pace, points more toward another matchup where the scoreboard stays busy rather than quiet. As our second pick for this matchup, over the projected total is our full game total pick. Los Angeles Kings versus Seattle Kraken. The Los Angeles Kings head into Seattle to face the Kraken at Climate Pledge Arena, and this matchup has a very clear mood to it. One side is cruising on structure and confidence, the other is trying to remember what a win even feels like. When a team has not picked up a victory since November 22, frustration starts to leak into every line change, and you can usually see it in the small details, like board battles and backchecks. On the market side, this really starts with Los Angeles and their road profile. They have been one of the better traveling groups in the league, sitting at 10 wins, 2 losses, and 4 overtime results away from home, which is not just solid, it is reliable. 10 of their 14 wins coming on the road is not a random quirk. It speaks to a team that handles tough buildings, last change, and travel noise pretty well. That kind of steadiness tends to matter in spots like this. Their defensive game is a big reason, allowing just 2.48 goals per game, second best in the league. They are built from the back out. The structure in front of the crease limits high danger looks, and the goaltending, framed as Vezina level with that 2.23 goals against and .914 save percentage, ties the whole thing together. When your netminder is trusted, skaters can play a little more honest and a little less scared, which is often the hidden edge. Seattle, on the other hand, is in that ugly space where the results and the numbers are both nagging at them. They have dropped 6 in a row, they have not put one in the win column since November 22nd, and their defense is absorbing a lot of punishment during this stretch. Being due for a win is more of a fan feeling than a betting edge, and here it does not really erase the problems. A leaky penalty kill at just 66.2%, tired legs from chasing games, and key forward absences like Jaden Schwartz being out all contribute to a side that looks fragile rather than threatening. Historical trends do not decide games, but they can whisper a bit. The road team has taken 6 of the last 9 meetings between these two, which fits the story of Los Angeles traveling well and Seattle struggling to protect its own ice. Put together, the stronger defensive identity, better road form, and steadier crease tilt the side argument toward Los Angeles rather than the home underdog trying to snap a skid. In simple terms, the Kings present the more trustworthy money line profile in this matchup. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Kings money line is our full game side pick. Los Angeles is not an offensive buzzsaw. They average 2.72 goals per game, which is more methodical than explosive. They control games with defense first thinking, and that style naturally pulls total scoring down. When a team locks down the neutral zone and keeps shots to the outside, you may still see pressure, but you do not see many clean, highlight reel chances. It is slow burn hockey. Seattle's attack, meanwhile, is even more muted. At 2.48 goals per game, sitting at the bottom of the league, their scoring issues are not a short-term blip, they are a theme. They struggle to finish, even when they manage acceptable shot volume. That is the kind of offense that can make even average goaltending look good, and against a strong defensive side, it often turns into long stretches of harmless zone time. There is a bit of a contradiction baked in. The Kraken penalty kill is historically poor at just 66.2%, which usually suggests more goals against, but that needs chances against a team that can actually punish it. Los Angeles does not really profile as a wild, high-scoring machine. They are more about picking their spots, protecting a lead, and squeezing the clock. So while a bad penalty kill can spike the score in some matchups, here it more likely just adds a couple of tense moments rather than a goal fest. Add it up and you get a picture of a game that leans cagey. Los Angeles brings a defense that gives up only 2.48 goals per game. Seattle has an offense stuck near that same number at 2.48, and the combined expectation hovers around 5.2 goals. Neither side screams track meet, and the current form on both ends suggests more grinding than fireworks. So, from a totals perspective, this matchup points toward a lower scoring affair, with a strong case for the number staying under the projected line. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.